Delicious, I love that. We are making summer flounder fillets with fresh herbs and toasted breadcrumbs. And we fillet these ourselves, as you can maybe tell.
For the first time, we got in one room all facets of the seafood economy.
This event is amazing. It is my heart and soul because I grew up in Rhode Island. Seafood has been a part of my entire life.
The absolute enthusiasm that I saw yesterday afternoon with everybody in the kitchens, just, filleting fish, getting mucky, preparing foods, and being enthusiastic about it.
Going from the raw fish, which I'm very familiar with, I've handled a lot of fish, but just going through the whole process, it was sort of the metamorphosis from that fish to a supreme plated dinner.
The collaboration we're experiencing with Sea Grant, University of Rhode Island, the various suppliers and farmers and the constituents we're serving, it started with a good deal of planning. We didn't exclude the fish farmers. They have to be part of the equation. We have a global population to feed going from 6 to 9 billion. We have to include the fishermen catching wild species offshore and inshore. And so when you get all these various constituents together, there has to be a lot of thought in how you handle the individuals. And one thing we realized is we had to get them handling the fish. You can feel it in the building when you walk through and see what we're doing in these kitchens and talk with the scientific and culinary community.
I'm pretty excited to be a part of this. Rhode Island Sea Grant and Johnson & Wales University and University of Rhode Island have really done something that I haven't seen before, is they brought these worlds together, everybody working in their own strengths, but well coordinated across. And so this is quite an exciting step to the future.
For a long time, the stresses that the oceans have been feeling have really not had a voice in Washington. That can't last because the oceans are sending us very intense distress signals. I applaud what you're doing. I look forward to your advice and assistance as I keep working on what I'm doing in Washington.
Symposiums like this one that Sea Grant is doing are very important at bringing people together from different sides of the seafood marketplace so that they can engage in a joint strategy to help develop a Rhode Island fresh seafood industry.
Because of diminished fish stocks through overfishing, that's a capital stock that we're losing the opportunity of using.
Fish capture as plateau. People want more and more seafood. Where does the gap come from? And these gaps will have to come from aquaculture. In a grocery stores, if you go to the seafood department, roughly 50% of your seafood come from farms. I think with integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, we are gradually improving practices. It's based on two things. It's multi-trophic, so we use different type of organism. We use what we call fed aquaculture, that's fish or shrimps that are fed. And then we use extractive aquaculture, like shellfish will go after extracting from the water organic matter, and the seaweed will extract the inorganic nutrient like dissolved nitrogen, dissolved phosphorus. So we have different trophic levels that are balancing each other in the ecosystem.
This and this, right?
My name is Chris Aerni. I'm the chef owner of the Rossmount Inn in St Andrews by the Sea. The question to be answered is, was it sustainable? In our area, for instance, we serve farm-raised salmon because there are no wild salmon fisheries. So hence, when there are no wild salmon fisheries, but the demand is there, that's where you start aquaculture. And I think it was clearly shown that this has been done for the last 2,000 years. So it's not an unnatural occurrence that the social pressures, local social pressure, induce aquaculture when the demand climbs above the supply. So, and for us, of course, aquaculture represents also a very, very local production of fish. So it's naturally to actually use something which is farmed right there.
From the shore, just if you had the salmon out there and then the mussels and the kelp, a bit further in, you get the rockweed.
For me, it's all about improving aquaculture practices. And things were not right 20, 30 years ago, but we are working on improving things.
State Representative Eileen Naughton.
And as the chair of the Rhode Island Aquaculture Commission, our first act and it was by unanimous consensus, was to develop a sustainable strategy for aquaculture in the state of Rhode Island.
My name is Perry Raso, and I own Matunuck Oyster Farm.
There you are, this is for whenever you're ready.
The demand for the local product is really what drives the restaurant. You know, the carrying capacity of these estuaries and the bays to grow oysters is enormous. I think the best way we can proceed is gradually growing and making sure we educate along the way as far as letting people know exactly what the realities of shellfish aquaculture are and how they're impacting their environment and their economy.
We're working with Bill Silks. In order to do a vertical tasting of oysters, you've got to taste them.
My name is Bill Silks, and I'm the owner-operator of Saltwater Farms, which is a mussel and oyster farming company here in Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island. We also have a processing plant which I own and operate, and that's American Mussel Harvesters, and that's on the shores of Narragansett Bay in North Kingstown. We brought our Quonset Point oysters, which we grow on the farm here in Narragansett Bay at Saltwater Farms, as well as the mussels that we're growing at Saltwater Farms and in cooperation with the offshore fishermen. We had to go out and find other sources of supply as throughput through our processing plant in order to afford it. You need the shoreside infrastructure in order to do the things you want to do on the water. So in addition to our Quonsets and our blue gold mussels, we brought the Katuitt oysters and the Raspberry Point oysters from New London Bay on the northern shore of Prince Edward Island.
I'm David Butel. I work for the Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council as the Aquaculture and Fisheries Coordinator for Rhode Island. The cod and the flounders and the skates, when they're scared up by the foot rope of the net, swim right down. So they're swimming right through those meshes. The eliminator net works because it exploits the differences in fish behavior. Most finfish, when they're startled by a net, swim downward, except for haddock, which swim upward. So by using this net, you can catch haddock and none of those other species that are affected by quota. We did over 100 comparison tows in 4 different seasons. And what the results showed were that the eliminator eliminated skates, so virtually every skate was gone from that compared to the control net. It eliminated about 90% of the codfish and about 95% of all the different flounders that are in the multi-species complex. So it really caught clean haddock, and that was its success.
Through knowledge generated by the Culinary Institute, as well as the scientists at the University of Rhode Island, how do we better develop a better economy, really is what it's all about.
There are similarities between agriculture and fishermen. There's 12 to 1,300 farmers in the state. There's 12 to 1,300 fishermen. Together, this industry is worth $200 to $300 million per year. It should be one of the pillars of our economic rebirth in this state, and I think that's one of the goals that we certainly want to promote.
One of the missions that I'm on right now is to come up with a local and sustainable policy for the university as to how we're going to deal locally with vendors.
I remember when Chilean sea bass was everywhere, and then it was like 1 minute it was everywhere, and then you woke up the next morning and it was like, don't serve Chilean sea bass!
Chefs I've met in various venues been passionate about what they do. So I would like to encourage them to take that passion and bridge it a little bit with the science.
And you see that the role of the chef is expanding beyond the kitchen. They're involved in environmental and personal health issues. And again, a conference like this helps to solidify it.
Consumers really trust chefs. They get a lot of information from chefs. So it's very important for chefs who connect very nicely with the public, with their patrons, to communicate also with the food scientists, the nutritionists. And it's also important to get this information through these various sources out effectively.
You could tell by my excitement yesterday in the kitchen how great it was to have the quality of fish species provided by Rich Cook at Local Catch, all the wonderful oysters we're getting from Perry Raso, from Bill Silks at American Mussel Harvesters, the folks at Cook Aquaculture, and being able to pull all of those perfect products into the kitchen and deal with them is just fantastic. The rooms, the kitchens yesterday were electric.
think this is flounder. That one.
Our students here are delighted. Our students actually were woven into the experience yesterday. Most folks didn't realize we had a dozen students working with us.
Being in the kitchen was fabulous. It was a beautiful setting for talking to people because we were cutting our things, and the ambience was relaxed, and a lot of spontaneous discussion happened that you don't find in a conference room.
So we created a bonding and a cultural event too here, not only just a science event.
First of all, a measure of success when we do these things is we didn't have to dial 911. We're on to something here. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. Barry and I already wrestled with this question of what's next. We hope that we can at least do one more Baird event similar to the one we've just executed. The folks that are here are excited and encouraging us to do another. I think we'll probably have to consider facilities because it will probably double in size.
It was a real thrill to be working with these professional chefs who they too are so enthusiastic about the foods that we bring to the marketplace, but to see it from their perspective of they taste things that I never tasted before, and they see in the foods that we produce things that I've never imagined before, and so it brings this whole wonderful perspective, and it really reinforces your desire to go back and do what you do. What everybody has in common, no matter where you are in the world, is food, and it's food that brings people together no matter where you are.
We have a bay that's one of the most incredible natural resources when handled correctly for the region and could be a source of economic development and innovation.
I call this our backyard garden, you know. The bay is our backyard garden here in Rhode Island. Everybody lives a stone's throw away from it.
We've really been celebrating the seafood. When we went up yesterday to start our labs, that display of fresh fish there, that's really a celebration of what's in the ocean.
The experience at this Sustainable Seafood Symposium was, for me, very exhilarating.
I'd say I would love to continue to keep this group of disciplines and people together, the scientific community, the culinary community, the producers, and keep the conversation going about what sustainability really is, and really market the fact that we're doing it already.
That is fantastic. Thank you.